Josh, what you need to do is boxing with that rawness that you once had.
But it's got to be what's right for Anthony Joshua, because
Absolutely.
we didn't see that from Klitschko.
The concern for me is that we're not seeing the combinations that we used to see, and that's what wins Joshua fights.
Welcome to Talk Boxing with Simon Jordan and Spencer Oliver. This is episode 48. As always, don't forget to keep liking and subscribing and sending questions in. But a week is a long time in politics, but also a week is a long time in boxing, because we're seeing a lot of movement going on in the heavyweight division, a division that we turned around last week and said, are we going to see any of these big heavyweights coming out and fighting in meaningful fights? And are we going to see them appear? And all of a sudden, the rumour mill, it doth spin, and we have something that looks like there's going to be quite a significant amount of endeavour and outcomes on the the much fabled December 23rd card.
Yeah, it's
what
crazy.
Are you hearing, mate?
Last week we didn't know if the show was going to go ahead or if it was going to be scrapped because of the Tyson Fury dropping out of this proposed fight with Alexander Usyk, now going to take place later in next year.
Yep.
So I am
hearing
now, and this is from pretty good sources actually,
Yep.
that we get Anthony Joshua versus Otto Wallin.
Yep.
I'm hearing Deontay Wilder versus Joseph Parker. I'm hearing Daniel Dubois versus Baby Miller, Gerard Miller. I'm hearing also, who else am I hearing? Dimitri Bivol versus Richard Riviera. Richard Riviera, for people that won't know him,
who can punch.
He absolutely can, yeah. He's only lost to one fight, and that was to Bellew Jack on the undercard of Anthony Joshua last time. Yeah. And it was a fight, by the way, that I was there in that fight. I thought he won it by 3 or 4 rounds. It's a tough fight, actually. It's a good fight. Riviera will go in there and see that as a big opportunity. So, yeah, But
Bivol.
Yeah.
I mean, Bivol's stock has risen hugely since the Craig Richards fight, where everyone felt that Craig could have gone into that fight with a bit more belief and might have come out of an outcome. And then we've seen Bivol go through the gears, haven't we?
Yeah.
We've seen the disciplined performance against Canelo, and we've seen other performances that have cemented him as one of the pound for pounds, arguably.
Yeah. I mean, look.
What did he fight Bellew Jack at? Did he fight him at cruiserweight?
At cruiserweight, yeah.
So he's fighting back down at light heavy again.
Yeah, he'll come to that. But he was small anyway, I think, when he boxed Bellew Jack. He looked small when he was out there, but very heavy-handed, dangerous guy. But like you say, Dimitri Bivol, we don't know how good he is because we haven't seen the way that he dealt with.
He looks good.
The way that he dealt with Canelo, I'm saying he done it with ease, didn't he?
Yeah.
So I'm saying there look like there's more levels to his game. Yeah. He could go down in history.
It's a fabulous division, the light heavy division, because we've got lots of representation in that. Yeah. Obviously, we want to see the Aziz Boazzi fight. We've got Anthony Yard, that is a personal favourite of mine.
Callum Smith's there as
Callum Smith there, and he's fighting Beterbiev, isn't he?
Yeah.
But go back to the big boys in the room that we constantly complain about and constantly bitch and whine about the heavyweight division. How
crazy we get it all on one night, though.
Well, I suppose you've ruminated about it and you've speculated that there were various things going on, and I know that you've been doing that. And also, Frank Warren has spoken about, look, watch this space. This is the game changer. This is what opens the doors.
Yeah.
So everyone is now being sucked into that vacuum because Warren and the Saudis, the PIF fund, and Turkey Al-Sheikh have now got their act together. Yeah. They've opened the doors with the event that happened with Ngannou, whatever we may think about the performance of Tyson and the spectacle itself. Yeah. But now you've got these potential fights in the offing, and they're coming from inside. Your information is coming from inside training camps, so to some extent.
Press conference Wednesday, by the way, the talkSPORT will be attending. They'll be on the talkSPORT YouTube channel, some of those interviews. But press conference Wednesday. So what I'm saying is, this is a reality. This is not speculation anymore. We are now at the stage where it is happening.
Yep.
And that's how quick the Saudis move as well, by the way, because to put a show of that magnitude together would normally take a lot of time, but obviously money speaks.
Well, money talks, isn't it? And the other thing walks, isn't it? But we've got these fights. If the rumours are to be had and taken at face value, if you look at the fights, we've got Anthony Joshua. By the way, did you see the Louis Theroux interview?
I did.
Did you make of it?
I thought it was a bit of a weird interview, if I'm totally honest. Yeah. A weird documentary, or whatever you want to call it. I saw parts of Anthony Joshua there that were still very vulnerable.
Yeah, that's what I saw.
The vulnerability was very much there. I mean, Louis asked him some brilliant questions. I saw the reaction to what Anthony Joshua was saying about throwing the belts out of the ring, etc.
Yeah, he didn't like that very much.
No, he didn't. But I think the thing that caught my eye most is that Anthony Joshua is he was propelled into this superstardom and he does. I don't think he wasn't prepared for it, and he wasn't prepared for the criticism that
came
comes along with it.
See, the only thing I took away from that interview, besides the vulnerability side and what a decent fellow he is, right, was the slight negative observation that you cannot tell people that boxing doesn't love you. When you've got hundreds of millions of pounds as a result of boxing. What it doesn't do is it doesn't cherish everything you do. And that's life in every walk of life. But he now looks like the matchup is Otto Wallin. And to be fair to Otto Wallin, he deserves a payday because he got bumped out by Dillian White about 18 months ago, didn't he?
He did. I mean, he was, he put up a good fight against Tyson Fury.
Well, this is what I'm going to ask you in terms of a fight. Because obviously
and
he
beat Gassiev last time out, by the way. Which was a good,
good
win.
and obviously, but the main truck of people's thinking about Wallin is, well, you gave Fury a whole handful of problems. You cut him and you caused him a raft of challenges, and so his reputation has been built upon that. He doesn't appear to have that much power. If you've got a 50%,
well, he trained at my gym, so I know him quite well actually. Southpaw. I've taken him on the pads a couple of times. That was quite comical.
What you on? On a set of ladders.
But no, he's a lovely guy, but he can fight as well. He's sneaky. So what I'm saying is, he's not a devastating puncher. He sort of chips away, but he's very difficult to fight. He's got big balls. He'll go in there like he did against Fury, and he'll put it on him. I mean, Murat Gassiev, who he beat last time out, was a great cruiserweight guy. Big knockout percentage, very heavy-handed, and he just he won that on a split decision. But it was a fight that.
What do you think for this? Because people will say
it's an interesting fight.
Yeah, people. It has a bit more credibility than potentially Helenius and Franklin had. And Franklin caused problems to Dillian White and caused a slight conundrum for Anthony Joshua. But everyone's looking at Anthony. Everyone is focusing on Anthony. And I get the feelings that he has about the amount of pressure and focus and challenges that he has if he doesn't do everything the way people think, and that's what he said in the interview. People don't know what I think. They keep telling me what I think. They keep telling everyone else what I think. They're not doing what I'm doing. But people will say that he needs to go in there and make a statement. I don't think he needs to. I think he should want to. And
I agree with that.
So again, from this point of view of Anthony Joshua, what do you think this fight looks like for him? What do you think that we should be looking for from him?
Listen, I think that if he can go in there and win this fight, if he wins it inside the distance, he's made a real statement that Anthony Joshua is well and truly on his way back, because Wallin is a great fighter. He's a very good fighter. I've seen him, like I say, I've seen him in the gym. We saw the Fury fight, Gassiev again. So he's underlined that he can compete at that level. It's a good fight for Joshua at this stage, because it will tell us a lot more about where Anthony Joshua's at this level right now. I think it's a good test for Joshua, this one.
The more, again, I hate to, because I want to be balanced in our observations, but whenever Anthony comes into the conversation, the necessary default setting is always, can he be what he once was before? Anthony makes the argument, doesn't he, that I'm a wiser fighter. So I don't do the things I did before because I don't want to, because I don't need to, because ultimately I've wised up as a fighter. But there is still, and the more fights, I keep talking to fighters, I do other stuff when I speak to a lot of fighters, and every time I speak to a fighter who you guys know more than I'll ever know, right? I can opine and string a sentence together, but you guys have done it, so you know what it looks like when a fighter looks like he's not the same fighter as he was before. And I still hear the same conversations. I think Chisora alluded to, and I did a podcast with Chisora the other day, that there's a perception that Anthony doesn't have the hunger anymore, and the lights have gone out. McGuigan said it, Froch has said it, all of these fighters, and what Anthony's guys will say is they're haters and they get clicks off the back of it. But again, the question will abound ultimately, won't it?
Yeah, absolutely. What Anthony was saying in that interview was that, I've got that experience now. Once you've got that experience, you use that experience. I want to box on the back foot and whatnot. But going into some of the fights that we've seen in recent times, you go, no, Josh, what you need to do is you need to apply that pressure. You actually need to revert to that, that boxing with that rawness that you once had to get this job done. You don't need to box this guy because that's going to make things difficult for you. So I think that's the big question mark over him is, has that hunger left?
Do you think that's fair? I mean, I know this is probably a bad analysis, But the Ali of the 60s that could move and fight the way he did
Yeah.
wasn't the Ali of the 70s.
Yeah.
So he had to change because he lost 3 years, Ali, in terms of not taking the draft and then being banned, and came back a different animal, yet still went on to win the world title, the championship.
The difference with Ali, though, is that in his early days, when he was Cassius Clay, etc., in those days, he used his movement and his ring craft and his speed and whatnot. But when he come back, then he used that. You know, he bit down.
But no one complained.
No, because
Anthony Joshua's going the other way. Anthony Joshua's gone from power to movement.
Yeah, but heavyweight boxing is all about the brutality, isn't it? I mean, let's be honest about it. Heavyweight boxing is all about people want to see the heavyweights in there, and they want to see the. If you look at the stars of heavyweight boxing, they're all explosive, like Mike Tyson, Evander Holyfield, you know, Riddick Bowe, those guys. That's what people want, and I think they don't want like when you've had a guy.
But it's got to be. But it's got to be what's right for Anthony Joshua, because we didn't see that from Klitschko.
Yeah.
We saw him as a heavyweight champion for a number of years. After he got knocked down by Corey Sanders, change his game plan and subsequently box a little bit differently, yet he still became a significant world title. And Anthony Joshua's got to be in the business of doing what's right for Anthony Joshua, hasn't he?
Well, let's use Jermaine Franklin as an example on the comeback fight, the fight where we thought, let Joshua go and make a statement here because he pushed Dillian White. A lot of people felt he beat Dillian White. Use that as an example and you go, you just felt watching that fight, if Josh would have turned the screw a little bit more at certain points of that fight,
he could have got
So why didn't he?
Oh, you were fighting.
No, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Right, so that's what I'm saying. So that's what I'm saying. Like, I know when Josh is saying, but you know, I'll use my movement because now I've got that experience or whatever. You go, but that experience should allow you to go. Now it's time to turn it up. Can you turn it up? Can we see that picked up? That's what I want to see from him again. Not saying that he can't do it,
but you know,
I believe he can.
He answered some of those questions. He might have taken 7 rounds to get to it with Helenius, but the moment he got Helenius in trouble, he finished him.
That's going to be I think that's going to be the confidence booster that Joshua needed.
And I expect to see the same thing with Wallin.
Yeah, absolutely.
Do you think on the AJ question, and we'll move on from him in a moment, that this version of AJ would beat the Klitschko that he fought in, I think it was 2017, wasn't it? Yeah, that fight lifted everybody, didn't it?
Yeah.
You've got the wonderful iconic commentary from Adam Smith.
Question.
You know, you've got a fighter now that believes that he's wiser and a better boxer. If you put the boxer Anthony Joshua in against the Klitschko of 2017, given the way that you look at the boxing world, would you pick Anthony Joshua to win that fight?
I would, if I know that Joshua can still do what he done, as in with that rawness. I would say, well, obviously he's a more complete boxer now because his boxing has got better. We can't deny that. You know, his movement has get better, but we need to see that in with a mix of the Joshua where he sort of puts those combinations in. The concern for me is that we're not seeing the combinations that we used to see, and that's what wins Joshua fights. It's not that explosive one punch power. It's when he puts the shots together in 4s and 5s, and then he goes again, and that's what we need to see. If he can combine that with the boxing,
well, Derek James will know that, won't he?
Oh, of course.
Yeah,
of course. And I think that the knockout with Helenius was so important to Joshua moving forward because that's what he needed. He needed a show real knockout to add to his confidence, to give himself. I still find myself
a tad disappointed that, because we've spoken about this on a number of occasions, that let's stop fiddling about with interim fights against fighters that we think you should beat. Get in and fight Wilder because this is it. Yeah. This is the business end of it. But there's money to be had here. There's money to be made. Yeah. And Anthony, albeit he contradicted himself a couple of times in the Freer interview, where he said, I've never talked about money that much. When we've heard it repeatedly and endlessly that it's about money. I still feel that my juices were flowing for Joshua versus Wilder, and the Wallin fight, it has a modicum of credibility about it. It'll only have credibility in terms of Anthony Joshua's world if he goes in and does a job on him.
Absolutely, and I also think that, look, this is primarily set up now. You've got Anthony Joshua versus Otto Wallin on the same card. You've got Deontay Wilder, who I believe is the next Joseph Parker, which sets up winner, and we go again, possibly with Fury.
And you think that may be the formula?
It'd be late in
that. But what is just out of curiosity? I mean, that fight doesn't appeal to me. Wilder appeals to me because you never know quite what you're going to get from Wilder in terms of you've got this explosive power and it creates interest. Right? But we've just seen Joseph Parker come back and beat Simon Keane, right?
Yeah.
We saw him get absolutely. He threw the kitchen sink at Joe Joyce, didn't make a dent and got knocked out.
Yeah.
Right? We've seen what's happened to Joe Joyce with Zhili Zhang twice now. What are you intrigued by Parker versus? I mean, I went to the Parker versus AJ fight, and it was a snooze fest.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it was a dreadful
Parker's
fight, and the referee didn't help it
Parker's a bit
either.
like that. Parker can, Parker. The problem with Joseph Parker is that he won't take the risks that are needed as well. Where you look at him sometimes and you go, "Come on, then, mate, pick it up."
Because he's got it.
Turn the screw, because he's got it there.
Yeah,
and you just
technically,
think, yeah, he's got it there technically, and you just want him to do a little bit more. Well, he's going to have to do that against Wilder, or he's going to get bummed out.
Are you surprised?
I think it's a good fight, and the only reason that I think it's a good look, it just sets up, doesn't it, the Anthony Joshua Deontay Wilder fight later in the year. I believe
if all roads lead to that, yeah.
If roads lead to that,
if that is the case, then we can all live with that because it has a modicum of, Wallin looks like on paper a decent fight. The Parker fight, to me, I think Wilder just goes and knocks him out.
Well, the worry is when you saw that against Keane, which you just referred to. The worry about that is that Parker, has adopted this sort of Tyson Fury sort of style, because he's up there training with the Furies, carrying his left hand low, but he gets hit with right hands. He was getting hit with right hands there. I go, you can't afford to get hit like that by Deontay Wilder, because like you say, he's going to go to sleep. Yeah.
You surprised that Joe Joyce isn't in the mix? I mean, the gatekeeper for these fights is Frank Warren and his relationship. He's opened the door, and all the other guys are going to pile in. So Eddie's going to get benefit out of it. The Sauerlands are going to get benefit out of it, and I suspect Ben Shalom will get some benefit out at some point in the future. Are you surprised that Joe Joyce hasn't been mooted in this conversation?
No, I'm not actually.
Why?
I'm not surprised because Joe Joyce is coming off back-to-back defeats against Zhilei Zhang, which were in April and September of this year, and I think that for Joe Joyce to be boxing on this show, he'd have to go into a fight of some sort of meaning, and I think that could be career-ending for him. I think with Joe Joyce, what his plan is, I know this actually, what his plan is, he goes back into training next week sometime. He wants to come back, he needs to come back, he wants a comeback fight before mixing back up with the big boys. Like if he's boxing out in Saudi, he's got to box in a meaningful fight, and he's not ready for that yet, coming off those two back-to-back defeats. So, look, you've got to give him that. I mean, they were two crushing defeats, and you go, understand that it's a real rebuilding process to go through here. Putting him in with, putting him in against, one of the guys that are on the bill out there. Imagine if he went in there with a Filip Hrgovic is also rumoured to be fighting out there, and Frankie Sanchez is also.
The reason why I asked Joe Joyce is because he's still got to fight someone of some recognisability. So the argument, the debate that we're having now about who's fighting who, we've got Daniel Dubois fighting Jarrell Miller.
Yeah.
Right. So Daniel Dubois got that fight. Joe Joyce potentially could have been in a conversation for that fight.
Yeah.
That's a rebuild fight. Jarrell Miller.
Maybe.
I mean, what does it mean, Jarrell Miller? My recollection of Jarrell Miller, besides getting bombed out to fight AJ, which took AJ down a pathway of fighting Andy Ruiz.
It's all about timing, though, Simon. I think with Joe Joyce, after that defeat, which was, 23rd of September of this year, I think he's had a little break. Obviously, this has come around very, very quick, this whole Saudi bill. Like, there was rumours circulating 25th, but no one thought it was going to be of this sort of magnitude. And I think that Joyce would never get himself in shape in time. I think that's the reasoning behind it. Not that maybe he wouldn't do it.
Right, what do you think of Dubois versus Jarrell Miller? I mean, we've obviously had a lot of noise about what Dubois exposed in Usyk and confirmed the suspicions that Anthony Joshua had illuminated upon where he had punched a few times. It got gone to the body with Usyk and shown certain weaknesses there that Usyk didn't like. And obviously Dubois had a real opportunity and didn't take it. What do you think about him fighting Jarrell Miller because obviously we had the noise about Frank trying to get a no contest, Frank trying to get a rematch, Frank trying to get a mandatory position back in the WBA, so when the WBA ticker comes around again, he gets another opportunity. None of those seem to have been achieved. What do you think for Daniel? Obviously,
I like this fight for Daniel.
Do you?
Yeah, I like this fight for Daniel because he's slimmed down a little bit. He trains at the gym where I'm at with Don Charles, so I do see him from time to time. He's lost a lot of that muscle mass. He's a little bit more athletic. So stylistically, this is good for him. Baby Miller, as we know, comes forward. He's slow, he's sluggish, wings the fight. So he likes people to sit in the pocket and stand and trade with him. I think this is a good fight for him, actually, for Dubois. A good rebuilding fight for him because I just think that he'll go out there and he'll get the job done.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like it.
We keep hearing observations, about Andy Ruiz, about the spectre of Wilder fighting Ruiz and Wilder suggesting that Ruiz goes and plays hide and seek with himself.
Yeah.
Ruiz has fought twice in 4 years.
It's incredible.
What's going on? I mean, is he in the larder?
Well, I've heard nothing about Andy Ruiz. Obviously, he's on social media a lot, calling for these fights. The fights are not happening. Looks in great shape. I'm wondering if he pops up on this bill. I know, like I said to you, Filip Hrgović is on this bill as well. And the last I heard was it was a
well, who's
TBC.
Hrgović going to fight then?
That's what I'm saying. No one knows who it is, but he's rumoured to be fighting on this bill, and I believe he will be. And also Frankie Sanchez, who I said, the Cuban, undefeated Cuban, good mover. Yeah. What I'm saying, you may see Andy Ruiz in with one of those two. That would make for an interesting fight. But I think that Ruiz is there or thereabouts, and he could be in with one of those two. But I think them two are on the bill as
Interesting,
well.
he's not been active though, isn't it?
Well, that's why he could be in with one of those two. I think that it would work for someone like Filip Hrgović. You go, right, inactivity play a huge part. Andy Ruiz, you know, he's...
Do you think Ruiz is an interesting one? Because, I mean, look, he got beat earlier in his career by Joseph Parker, right? And then then the memorable fight is obviously what he did to Anthony Joshua, which I think was as more about Anthony Joshua's performance than it was about Ruiz's.
I think it was more memorable the way he turned up for the return fight. We turned up like...
Yeah.
He turned up like one of the Teletubbies.
Well, this is my point, the Pillsbury Doughboy. Yeah. And I knew that he was going to be in that situation because he gets sponsored by Frosts of London. My mates own that, and they said he could barely get through the door while he's buying all that jewellery. So I knew what kind of condition it should have weighed in, should have lumped on.
Incredible.
But Ruiz, as a big time fighter,
I think he's in the mix. I do think I think that he has got the ability, and I think that, you know, get himself in shape, and he's a dangerous guy. He's heavy-handed, slow feet but heavy hands. He's always, I think he's definitely in the mix. That's why I'm hoping that he's on this bill out in Saudi.
I mean, in Francis Ngannou, obviously a lot of noise has been made about the fact that he's come into heavyweight boxing now as a result of that fight with Tyson Fury. Yeah. I don't know if he got ranked by the WBC inside the top 10. Yeah. But I don't know if that's happened. But that organisation to me just seems to go from bad to worse. They seem to go from bad to worse. It's just you know, but where does he land in the mix? Right, so I had the dubious pleasure of spending an afternoon with Derek Chisora on Friday.
I texted Derek and said to him, "Is it you and him?" I asked him because I'm going. I know Derek will go anywhere for a pound note. That's a fact.
To avoid paying one,
Derek keeps himself in shape, and I go. So straight away, I'm thinking, Ngannou, that's Derek Chisora. That sort of fits the bill. He didn't get back to me anyway because he's so rude. But you obviously had that.
Yeah, he was in a room boring me. I mean, entertaining
me. Yeah, no, being rude to you and all, probably. That's what he's like.
Or his version of it,
he never got back to me, so I'm just assuming that Derek, because he's got the connection with Saudis, I thought that was perfect. But Ngannou, actually, what I'm hearing with Ngannou is he clearly doesn't understand boxing and the way that it all works, because he's now saying, well, actually, I'm going to sit it out and wait for the return with Tyson Fury. I'm going to let Fury box Alexander Usyk, and then maybe I'll box Fury later. And I went, mate, that will not happen. Like, forget that. So if you're going to sit there for the best part of a year waiting for a return with Tyson Fury, you've just wasted a year of your life and you're 37 years old.
I'm glad to see that the conversation hasn't been explored, or I'm hoping it won't be explored, for Anthony Joshua to be fighting him. I want Anthony to go a different route.
I think Eddie Hearn went ching ching. Hold on a minute. And then
that's his job.
And then absolutely. He saw the opportunity, but obviously it was something maybe that the Saudis didn't want, or Ngannou didn't want. They wanted to take a different path. And I'm not sure why negotiations broke down, but I think Eddie sort of had to look into that. But now we get Otto Wallin.
Who tops the bill?
Joshua Wallin.
Yeah, I think so.
Joshua Wallin's top of the bill. Chief support, you're probably going to go
Wilder.
with...
Wilder.
Yeah, Wilder. And then we're going to go in with Dubois, Parker. Well,
what do you think about Jay Patel? Who was his last fight? I watched the last fight.
As well. That's
why I'm asking. Because
I mean, it's insane though, isn't it? Like, how can you forget names like that? What I'm saying is that it's probably the biggest card that I've ever been involved in.
This is Saudi.
Yeah, absolutely.
This is Saudi.
Jay Patel. He could be actually a danger in the heavyweight division.
Do you think?
Absolutely. I know he's only 6'1". I know he's like cruiserweight, but he's stylistically. Sometimes you can use that to your advantage. You know, I think that he could be a problem in the heavyweight division.
Do you?
If and when he decides to step up, I really do.
Yeah, I saw him in his last fight. It was a demolition. But it was a slight mismatch, wasn't it? In terms
Jordan
of
Thompson,
Yeah, I mean, he was game, but...
Yeah, but Jordan Thompson's a decent fighter at his own level.
That's what
I'm saying about Opataya. What I'm saying is, when I saw that, I went...
Oh, it was a demolition, wasn't it?
Absolutely.
It was demolition.
And, you know, I think that he could be a threat in the heavyweight division in time as well. I hope he's on the card as well. Have we forgot anyone else? I mean, I'm hearing names everywhere.
We've talked about Bivol.
But the names that we've actually mentioned are...
Yeah.
I'm quite.
It's an embarrassment of riches, isn't it? It's the potential embarrassment of riches in terms of there's so much there to be looking at.
You can't.
lots of noise last week, lots of discussions, the re-emergence of Chris Eubank Sr. Espousing the world of his particular brand of wisdom, and his nephew.
Harlem boxed brilliantly at the weekend, by the way. Yeah, it's the 11th round stoppage of a guy that previously hadn't been stopped. And he got the job done. Do you know what? I think.
What do you think of him? I mean,
I like
his
what
uncle
I saw.
was talking about him in very glowing terms.
Yeah.
I don't know whether this is. Well, I suppose it's just a natural opportunity.
Yeah.
If Harlem's asked his uncle to get involved, and given the fact he's moderately estranged from his own son, he's involved in this.
He is, and I think that it's give Harlem a big boost. And I think that what we saw at the weekend down in Brighton, homecoming for him, I thought he put in a really good performance.
What's a good performance for Harlem Eubank?
Yeah, so I think that he kept himself nice and controlled all through the rounds. He had 11th round stoppage, you know, waited for his opportunity, and he took that opportunity. What was he previously? 18-0, 19-0, something like that. Got another victory against an opponent that was expected to last the distance.
Yeah.
And it was a good test for him to see where he's sort of at. And I think that, you know, he's announced himself. He's a super lightweight at the moment. But I think that Chris was saying this is the last fight at super lightweight. We're moving up to 147. We want Conor Benn. Is obviously the fight he wants. But I think that on that performance, that's a good fight. I like what I saw there against. I think he's an improved fighter. He puts his shots together really well. Got a great shot selection. You know, the finish was brilliant. The right hook. He had him down just before. It was a good performance.
Do you think he's got the chops to go somewhere significant?
I think he has. Yeah, I think he has. I think it's in the DNA. I think that he's improved a lot. I saw Harlem when he's boxing at like York Halls and stuff like that, and I saw him where you're sitting there looking at him thinking, well, if he gets to British level, you know, he's done well there or whatever. But now he's just sort of like he's coming into his own a little bit. What I saw the other night, on Saturday night, was impressive.
Chris Eubank Sr. has been very vociferous about some of the challenges that awaited his son, some of his objections, specifically around the boiling down of Eubank Jr. to fight Conor Benn. This is a different dynamic, but he's also been very angry about the nature of the involvement of drugs in sport.
Yeah.
He questioned a particular trainer that was injecting his son in his hands and who does this sort of stuff. He refers to them as PE teachers. Yet the Conor Benn situation hasn't been resolved, really. And here he is.
Talking about it.
Calling out
Conor Benn.
Conor Benn.
Yeah.
I mean, what do you make to that?
Well, I think that seniors missed that part of, that's great, Chris. And I think you're right in what you're saying. Him and Harlem Benn would be better than him and Chris Eubank Jr. because Eubank Jr. is too big at 160. Too small to come down anymore, and the whole situation, we know what all that was, and it was terrible. But let him clear his name, Chris. You forgot that bit, mate. This kid's still got to go through.
But do you think it's Machiavellian?
What's all this noise we're hearing about Junior and Conor Benn boxing in January? That's not going to happen because.
But do you think he's also being a bit Machiavellian because of his fallout with, or his estrangement, shall we say, with Eubank Jr., that he's trying to throw another Eubank into the mix that creates a degree of Machiavellian behaviour? Because it would be ironic, wouldn't it, if Eubank Jr. doesn't fight Conor Benn and Harlem Eubank fights Conor Benn and Chris Eubank goes with a fighter that's fighting. This is
where I think it is. Chris Senior is going, listen, like I want that fight with what Conor and his team, but with what Conor and his team done to Eubank Jr. in trying to get him down and effectively trying to make him fight at a weight that was unrealistic, very, very dangerous in doing that. I think that affected Chris Senior massively, as we know. And I think that Chris Senior is going, I'll have you, but I want you to do it with Harlem. So I think that there is what's the word I'm looking for? Between the family, a real feud between the families.
It's bad blood.
It's bad blood between the families, and I think that Harlem Eubank is.
It's ironic, isn't it? Because
it's crazy, mate.
Because he's out on tour with Nigel Benn, or has been.
Yeah.
So there's this wound that perhaps never heals, irrespective of whether there's commercial opportunities are out there. Do you think it's a door he's pushing out that he'll ever get open in terms of Harlem being able to fight?
No, because I've seen interviews with Conor actually saying, listen, no, it's not, it's not. It's a cousin or a nephew. Sorry, it's a nephew of Chris. It's not his bout. It's more about me and Conor. He wants that fight. Sorry, me and Chris Jr. Sorry. That's the fight that he wants. That's the fight that he craves. I think if that fight doesn't materialise, which it will, but if it doesn't materialise,
that's the fight everyone gets paid.
I don't think that Harlem Eubank
is a substitute.
Is a substitute. No, not yet. Anyway, not until he goes and does something meaningful himself.
Yeah. Right. That's it for episode 48 of Talk Boxing. The moral of the story is: forecast that nothing's going to happen, and the following week everything will. Don't forget to keep liking and subscribing, and we'll see you next time we're out.